Welcome to what was formerly my dissect a member, my kind of scattered thoughts, but now we have kind of connect a member. I'm going to give a few episodes on trying to describe in simple terms what is actually happening in artificial intelligence. And so if you haven't seen them already, I suggest you go back to episode 104, 105. How does AI work? There's 4 steps. There's pre-training, there's training, there's post-training, and there's reinforcement training. Those are the 4 steps of artificial intelligence. In this episode, which may go a little longer than normal, I'm sorry, I want to talk about step 1, which is the pre-training. Pre-training really simply means we've got all these computers with storage devices and processing chips. We need to get some data. And so we're going to scour the internet to fill our computer storage with data. Now, there's actually a selective process here that takes place because they generally don't scour the entire internet, not all the sites. They may exclude some sites like pornography. They don't want that, or there may be some sites which they feel are not qualified sites. But basically, they scrape, if you will. They go through the entire internet, all the domains, and they suck in all of the information. Now, for my explanation, I'm going to stick with text, okay? Because it all takes in sounds, videos, images, art, and all that. And that just makes it more extensive, but it doesn't change the concept of what's happening. And so it acquires this data, but of course it's got to put the data into the storage, and it's got to translate it. And so they take words. Let's stick with English here, English words, and they store that. And then they do that by having each character, each letter or each comma, whatever it is, be a number, and then become a binary number. But they do another thing called tokenization. So there's about 200,000 words in the English language. About 50,000 are common words. About 3,000 are in common use for normal speech. But what the AI process does is it breaks these words into what they call tokens. Now, a token may be a single word like the, or it might be a part of a word like ization. So they wouldn't have a single token for tokenization. They'd have a token for the word token and word for ization. Put them together, see? So as these AI programs are sucking in all this information and tokenizing them, they end up with about 16 trillion tokens. Now, for English words, it's about 200,000, but because they've got sounds and pictures and lines and colors and so on. And just so you know what 16 trillion means, from time to time, I want to remind you and others that a billion is more or less the number of seconds in 30 years. So that if I gave you $1 a second, which would be $100,000 a day, more than 90,000, but let's call it 100. So you have $100,000 a day. It would take you 30 years to get to $1 billion. And by the way, if I gave you $1,000 a second, which is $100 million a day, it would take you 30 years to get to $1 trillion. Now, the U.S. national debt happens to be about $30 trillion, which means that in order to pay back that debt, we'd have to give $1,000 a second or $100 million a day for 3 times 30. That's 90. Yeah, 90 years, right? So $100 million for 90 years would pay off our national debt. Not going to happen. But anyway, so just so you know that 16 trillion tokens means taking all the information and breaking up into these little tiny pieces, okay? What do you end up with? You end up with, in these computers, and by the way, I know that one of the AI groups is going to start a computer center that's going to have 100,000 chips in it, And remember, these chips will process several billion cycles per second. That's what gigahertz means. Hertz is cycles or frequency, and giga means billion. So, like a 2 gigahertz chip will process 2 billion instructions in 1 second. That's a lot. But in order to process 16 trillion tokens, and which represent, let's say, 500 billion words, half a trillion words, which ends up being, you can consider this being one long, one-dimensional, like a line, string of transistors with 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, going out for miles and miles and miles. That's the first step in artificial intelligence. It is taking all the information from the internet, tokenizing it, and then storing it in these transistors or whatever they're using, each with an address to get these 500, just to talk about the English words now, 500 billion words of text tokenized and extended into this one long string of information. So I'm going to end it here, but just to kind of summarize that, the first step of Augusta Institute, that's AI too, artificial intelligence, is to take all of the English words in the internet, tokenize them, put them together, translate them into zeros and ones, and store them for processing. I'll get to step 2 on the next episode.